Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So we don't know for sure that we have a ban list coming up within the next month or so, but it feels like we're at the end of a format. With how dominant Snake Eye has been, it feels inevitable that they will get hit in some way. At the same time, we have massive changes coming up with the releases of the Infinite Forbidden and Battles of Legend Terminal Revenge, each of which looks like they will be game-changing sets. So today we're discussing some of the new techs that we've seen trending recently as players get prepared for the NAWCQ, as well as try to anticipate which cards will be most impactful and important next format. Let's get started. Kicking things off, we have a fun tech card called the Black Goat Laughs. Now this is a trap that has both a field and graveyard effect. Now on the field you can declare a monster name, and that monster can't be special summoned for the turn unless it's from the graveyard, and then you can banish this card from the graveyard as well, and then neither player can activate the effects of monsters with that name on the field. So effectively you're cutting off access to one particular monster, but you're just doing it in a different way each time. Now over in the OCG, this card has seen a decent amount of play. At first it was only used by Labyrinth so that you could discard it with your furniture pieces, but then it started popping up a bit more as a side deck option against Tenpai Dragons. Now here in the TCG, it hasn't seen too much usage yet either, but it's something that players are starting to use more and more. I've seen it in a couple of different side decks, and I think at one point it was a tier limit main deck card as well. The card is relatively new, coming out in Phantom Nightmare. It's generally sat at around $10 to $12. However, with some players speculating that it might be a useful card going into next format, we have seen it shoot up in price over the last week or two, and it now sits just between $18 and $20 on TCG Player. Now personally, I really like the card. It's just extremely format dependent, especially because of each of its effects cutting off access to the card, but only in a certain way, right? Like those applications are going to be limited in certain formats, but they might be really useful in others. Since the card is pretty new, it shouldn't be reprinted in the 2024 tins, so we might not actually see this card reprinted until the 2025 tins, which is quite a ways away. This is actually a card that I would own a set of if you plan on playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh throughout the rest of the year. I would try to pick up a set for around $45 to $50 if you can. Up next, we have Cross Sheep. This is a pretty fun generic Link 2 monster, just requiring its two materials to have different names. This card gets a number of different effects depending on the type of monsters that it points to. The main one that we're interested in is that if it points to a fusion monster, you can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard. Because of this, Cross Sheep has been used as a combo piece across a couple of different formats in the past. I believe that when this card came out, it was around the time that the Shaddoll Structure deck came out, so players were abusing this card in that deck, though it never really was all that meta relevant. However, since it was just a rare, in a core set, I think this was actually like a $7 to $8 rare. Now the card has got a secret reprint in the Megatins, and then an ultra reprint in Battles of Legend Armageddon. For quite a while, this card was basically only $1. However, because of its potential applications, I've always felt like this is something that could go up over time. Anyways, the card is currently trending upwards now. I believe it's primarily because of the release of Phantom of Yubel coming in Terminal Revenge. Nightmare Throne is a really easy way to get Phantom of Yubel onto the field, so for the most part, in combo decks you could just play your normal combo and then go into Cross Sheep, and since you have a Phantom of Yubel there as protection anyways, you may as well go into Cross Sheep and get a free body out of it. This card hasn't skyrocketed or done anything too crazy like that, but it's now up to between $3 and $5 per copy. It's weird because the rare is actually just as high as the others. I feel like the secret rare actually might be the one to continue to go up over time to maybe like $6, $8, even $10 depending on how meta relevant it is. But yeah, this card was a penny stock for a lot of players, so now is definitely the time to dig this card up out of your bulk, and depending on how many copies you have, you might want to move some now while it is getting some attention, but still hold on to a few just in case it continues to climb higher. Alright, another fun one, we have Dark Fusion. So this card is pretty simple. I think it's meant to be an evil hero card actually. We see Avion and Burstinatrix on here, but the reason we're talking about this card is Infernoids. Infernoids are getting some really good support in Terminal Revenge. The new fusion level 1 is called Infernoid Evil. It's ridiculous. It sends a number of Infernoid cards to the graveyard as long as you have a relatively high level Infernoid in the graveyard that you can banish, and it also searches for a Void Speller trap as well. Obviously, Infernoid Evil is a pretty big target to be hit by Valor or Impermanence, and that's where Dark Fusion comes in, since the monster that you summon off of Dark Fusion can't be targeted. You could still be unlucky and get hit with something like Ash, but with Valor, Imperm, and Mourner all being extremely meta-relevant effect negation that targets, Dark Fusion can really help to ensure that the effect gets to resolve. It's a bit situational, especially since you do have to draw Dark Fusion, but it'll definitely be useful and help to ensure that your deck can actually play the game when it does come up. As far as printings go, Dark Fusion has several different common printings that are all quite cheap, they're basically bulk. However, there's just 2 holo printings. One is as an Ultra from Legendary Collection Generation X, and then the other is as a secret rare from a Speed Duel box set. Now, either of these is going to be around $3 to $4 for a near mint copy, though to be fair, which one you use is going to be just personal preference. I know some people don't like the Speed Duel text on the card, however, the secrets do pop a lot more and look a lot cleaner than the Ultras in my opinion. Anyways, potentially a really useful card if Infernoids are the deck that you want to try building out of Terminal Revenge, though of course we're going to have to wait until after the next ban list to see just how the format is going to look. Okay, so this is an important card next format. We're looking at Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal. So of all the different cards coming out in the Infinite Forbidden, I think that the most impactful ones are probably going to be the new Fiendsmith archetype. They're basically able to get a free rank 6 onto the field without committing your normal summon or anything. That said, there's a few options players are considering for that spot, with things like DDD High Wave King Caesar, but the one most players are looking at is Beatrice, which basically lets you detach a material from it to send any card from your deck to the graveyard. I already thought that this card was pretty crazy before, since you could use something like Garura or the Bestials to make this card, but now that you can use it in Fiendsmith, it's really crazy, and there's a ton of things you can send to the graveyard, since you can send Engine if your deck really needs it, or for example in Labyrinth you could dump a Transaction Rollback, a big Welcome Labyrinth, any number of other cards. I think that the strangest thing about this price jump though is the version that has gone up. Beatrice has 3 different printings, with its maximum gold version and then the ultra rare from Brothers of Legend, both still being like a quarter each, they're not really that relevant. However, the original gold secret rare from Infinite Gold has actually jumped up, going from being a $3 card to now being a solid $8 to $10 each. This is pretty unexpected, especially for a gold rare, but honestly, I don't think any of the card's printings really do its art justice. To be honest, I could see Konami banning Beatrice in the near future actually, so take this with a grain of salt, but if they don't ban it, I think it would be a cool card to be included in Rarity Collection 3, mainly because I think it would be a beautiful secret rare. But yeah, if you're like me and you don't really care about any of the other rarities of Beatrice, I'd go ahead and just dump these for some extra money and play with the Ultras for now until the card either gets reprinted or banned. Alright, so I guess we have to talk about something related to Six Samurais here on Market Watch. The next card we'll cover is Legendary Six Samurai Shien. So I'm sure you guys have seen, but there are several new Six Samurai cards coming in Rage of the Abyss, and they do all look pretty cool. I don't know exactly if they'll be meta relevant, but they're definitely a fan favorite strategy that a lot of players were fond of. There are a ton of different cards we could have talked about that are spiking in price. I didn't want to say the same thing about like 90% of them, so we'll just make note of one here, which is the Legendary Six Samurai Shien. This card used to be a crazy boss monster. Once per turn you can negate the activation of and destroy a spell or trap card, and if it's on the field and would be destroyed, you can destroy another Six Samurai monster you control instead. This card used to be so difficult to get rid of, especially when you had this card alongside like a Naturia Beast and a Great Shogun Shien. It may not seem as crazy now, but obviously the power level of the game is very different versus back then. Now in today's format, the Spell Trap Negate is just good. The new retrain of Shien has a monster negate built in, but I think that having access to both is probably going to be pretty solid. Shien has a few different printings. Its super rare reprint is very easily accessible, so with Shien we just see the high-end versions that are up there in price. With the ultimate rare first edition copies, they're coming in well over the $100 mark. I believe there's sold listings at like $120 to $130 on TCG Player. The unlimiteds are much more affordable, only about $40 to $45, and then we have the secret rares which came out back in Spirit Warriors that are like $7 to $8 each. Definitely a cool card. I mean, if you guys have this in Alti, you probably have the deck from back in the day and you want to hold on to it. If you have it and it's not something you particularly care for though, I'd definitely try to offload it while the Six Samurai hype is fresh. Here's a card that we haven't talked about in a while. It's totally awesome. So in Terminal Revenge, one of the most impactful archetypes coming out is definitely going to be Ice Barriers, as they're a decent pure deck, but also good combined with Runic. However, one key card that they now have access to is Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier, a level 2 Aqua Tuner that searches for an Ice Barrier card if it's sent to the graveyard. It turns out that this is actually an important card for new Sprite decks and gives them access to Totally Awesome once again, which they lost with the banning of Ronin Totem. Basically, you can use Swap Frog to dump Mirror Mage to search for the revival spell, use the spell to revive Mage, and then make Totally Awesome there. The cool thing is that this only uses 3 summons, so you have space in there to summon a blue or a jet, and you'll still fall within 5 summons so that you can still play around Nibiru. The other thing worth noting is that the pure Ice Barrier deck is also able to make Bahamut Shark really easily, who can then bring out Totally Awesome as well. So while the other Omni Negates in Baron de Fleur and Borreload Savage Dragon are gone, Totally Awesome finds its way back into the format once again. I feel like a big part of the reason that this card hasn't come up recently is that it got 2 reprints that made it quite accessible. It was a rare in Maximum Gold, and then it was also an ultra rare in Magnificent Mavens. Over time, however, the card has gradually gone up, so those previously bulkier printings are now $5 to $6 each. With the secret rares, the reprints from the 2017 tins are at $8 to $10, while the original secrets from Invasion Vengeance are now $13 to $15. Now, I feel like Toad is due for some sort of higher rarity printing, though I don't know if that's going to be in Rarity Collection 3 with all of the different versions, or maybe an ultimate rare printing in OTS Tournament Pack 26, who knows. It's definitely an iconic card that does deserve some love, which it should get if Ice Barriers and Sprite manage to perform at all this upcoming format. Personally, I would be okay with playing the Ultras in my own extra deck and just wait for that nice printing to come out before buying into those secrets that are higher rarities right now. And finally, the last card I want to talk about is Ragnarika the Evil Seed. The last format has basically been dominated completely by Snake Eye, and I think a lot of players are kind of sick of it, but it seems that over in Europe things are a bit different. Over this past weekend, we saw Julian win German Nationals with his Plant Pile deck, and Jessica also took second at UK Nationals as well. A couple of lists ago, we did see plants get hit with Dryas and Healer being limited to 1. They did get some new support with the Ragnarika theme, but I don't think that the deck has really been on anyone's radar recently. However, I'm filming this on Sunday, so the event just finished a few hours ago, and we're already seeing a ton of movement from Ragnarika the Evil Seed. This is one of 2 Ragnarika secret rares, and we did see it used in the combo that Jessica did to make a crazy board in Game 2 of the finals. That said, Legacy of Destruction's pretty new, so Ragnarika should be safe from a reprint for a while, and while other decks like Snake Eye will get hit on the upcoming list, the plant deck shouldn't see any more hits for a while. Now, despite a ton of sold listings, the price hasn't technically moved much for this card yet, as it was $13 or so before, and now it's just at $15. However, if the card continues to get attention over the next week or so, we could be looking at a $30 card by next weekend, especially with how underwhelming Legacy of Destruction was. The thing that we have to question, however, is just how relevant we should consider the results from the European events to actually be. While players in Europe are good, I feel like a lot of the sentiment coming from Europe is that players haven't been as invested in the format there for the past half a year without any YCSs or anything to prepare for, and for them traveling to North America is probably more expensive and not really worth it. So if I were over there, I'd probably just want to play some casual decks and stay away from too much of the meta stuff as well. Now that said, I'm not too sure, I don't have like the breakdown of decks from Top Cut there yet, but it's just something to keep in mind as we watch how this card's price behaves over the next little while. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's episode. We definitely need a ban list. For now, I'm just excited to see Terminal Revenge and get all of the new stuff from there. I have a case tourney this upcoming Saturday. I was thinking of playing Pure Melodious like I've been doing for the last couple weeks, but the deck gets really frustrating sometimes and it kind of dies to hand traps. So I was thinking like Ice Barrier Runic, but I don't know. You guys tell me down in the comments. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure you let me know. Hit that thumbs up button, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.